Experts Partner Accounts, and a little bit of my background. I've been in sales for about 20 years.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
I'm sorry, I got interrupted there. And so I've been in sales for about 20 years, been in the solar industry for about 10 years, and I'm happy to be presenting to you guys today a little bit more on how to reduce your customer acquisition costs and how to optimize your prospect outreach. Okay, next slide, please. There we go. And so we're going to start at a very base level, just to build a foundation for the conversation. So just hang with me if this is kind of elementary for you. So the first part is the sales funnel. So a prospect goes through several stages before they become a sale. So the first stage is that they're unaware of you as a company, maybe unaware of solar as a product. And they do reach the awareness stage through maybe some advertising that you've done, or maybe an article they read in the newspaper about solar or something in general. And then they come into your fold as a lead somehow or another. Maybe they respond to an advertisement that you're running. Maybe they contact you directly. Some way, shape, or form, they make contact with your company. And from there, you're going to be doing a pre-qualification with them, I'm sure, deciding whether this is a homeowner that you do want to pursue. And if it is, you're going to schedule a sales appointment. And they're going to move to the opportunity stage. So at the sales appointment, the opportunity stage, you're going to be approaching them with your contract, with your product, with your company, and hopefully moving them on to the sales stage, which is the bottom of the funnel. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and then further expanding our foundation here. So what we need to do is look at how we can reduce the customer acquisition cost. So the first thing is to understand customer acquisition metrics, and there's several of them. It can be at the ad stage. If you're running your own advertising, let's say a Google AdWords campaign, you would be measuring your cost per impression, or otherwise your CPM. On every ad that you run, you get clicks, and so you'll want to measure how many clicks you're getting on those ads, the cost per click. And from there, it would move into the lead stage. Somebody submits their contact information to you. That would be your cost per lead. Those leads, as they convert over to sales appointments, are going to become opportunities. And so that's going to be your cost per opportunity. And then last, you've got your cost per sale. And the cost in this is wherever you entered the funnel. So if you're running advertisements, the cost of those advertisements is going to be the cost that you would divide the sales by. If you're buying leads, the cost of the leads that you're purchasing would be the cost that you would divide the number of sales by. So you do need to be able to measure these cost metrics so that you can optimize your pricing. And as you become knowledgeable on what the costs are to you, and it will allow you to implement process improvements, maybe adjusting your call schedule, maybe offering a new product that you weren't offering before that's in high demand. So that's the basic gist of where we're going to. Next slide, please. Okay, so we've got a couple different conversion ratios. The first one is going to be your lead to close. So a lead to close can be measured by how many of your leads turned into a sales appointment or an opportunity, times the number of opportunities that went to a close. And so a quick example is if 30% of your leads become appointments, if 30% of your leads become opportunities, then 10% of them are actually sold, then your overall lead to close ratio is going to be 3%. Once again, you just multiply those two together. And so one of the most important things that you need to do is be measuring your cost per opportunity and your cost per acquisition to understand if you are using your dollars effectively to generate closes, to generate opportunities for your sales team. So a cost per opportunity is a great way to estimate when you first start testing a new market channel. The reason is that it takes time for the sales to come in. You're going to run your advertisements. You're going to set up your sales appointments. But that presentation that you make to the homeowner, they might not sign a contract for another month or two. And so when you're first starting up with a new marketing channel, the quickest way for you to understand if it's a quality channel, something that you want to continue working with, is by looking at that cost per opportunity. Now, as you get a few months into it, let's say you've been running a marketing channel for 6 months, then you do have some data from the first couple months you were running that channel that's well matured, meaning that you've got most of the sales in that you're going to get from that channel. Generally speaking, within about 3 months or so, about 95 to 99% of your sales have typically come in the door in the solar industry. And so after you've got mature data, then you can start looking at your cost per acquisition. And this is the best way to measure your return on investment. But it does require you to have enough data and enough time for those leads to mature into sales. So if you're only looking at a sample of 10 leads or 10 opportunities, that's probably not a very large or a very good sample. It's not going to be statistically significant for you. And so it is important to have a sufficient amount of data and time before you start measuring your cost per acquisition. Okay, so let's get into how we're going to calculate it. A couple quick examples here. Let's say that you were running a newspaper channel and a Google AdWords channel. And the newspaper ad that you were running, it cost $5,000. The Google ads that you ran, they also cost $5,000. Okay, so each channel is going to perform a little bit differently, though. The newspaper, let's say that you only got 10 appointments out of it, 10 opportunities. Then your cost per opportunity is going to be that $5,000 cost divided by the 10 opportunities, which means that your cost per opportunity is going to be $500. And then as those move down the funnel a little bit further, a couple of those turn into sales. And so you can divide that original cost by two, the two sales, and that's going to give you your cost per opportunity. A further metric that you can look at is your opportunity to close. How many of your sales appointments actually signed a contract with you? In this example, 2 out of 10 signed a contract, so you have an opportunity to close at 20%. Not bad. Then you also have another channel going with Google. Once again, you spent $5,000. This one, you actually got a lot more opportunities out of it. That's great. You got 20 opportunities, 20 swings of the bat for the sales team, and your cost per opportunity is actually pretty good. It's $250. 5,000 divided by 20, $250 per opportunity. But those opportunities, out of those 20 swings of the bat, you only hit a home run once. You only got one sale. And so what that means is that your opportunity to close is only 5%, 1 divided by 20. So this is probably not as high of a quality a channel as the newspaper was for whatever reason. And then when you look a little bit further at the cost per opportunity, you're dividing that entire $5,000 cost by only one sale. So your cost per opportunity is $5,000. So you got to look at the two and you say, hey, what's my target? We're going to get a little bit further into this. What's my target? And is $5,000 too much to spend per acquisition? Is $2,500 too much to spend per acquisition? And that's the question you have to ask internally. And that's how you decide if the channel is good for your company or not. So continuing a little bit further on this vein, as I mentioned, you want to have some data in, but you also have to give it time to mature. And so in this same example, we had a $5,000 newspaper cost, $5,000 Google cost. And when we looked at it 1 month later in March, so this was spent in February, in March, we had 0 sales on the newspaper side. And so if you limit your view to only that 1 month time frame, you're going to say, wow, the newspaper really didn't do great. But if you wait another month, you get into April and you get one more sale in. Okay, so now you're saying, all right, well, my cost per sale, my cost per acquisition is $5,000. And then you wait another month into May and you get a second sale out of it. And that second sale cuts your cost per sale in half. Now you're at $2,500 per sale. So the Google channel, you're going to say, okay, well, in March, we have 1 sale. So my cost per sale is $5,000, but for whatever reason, there was no additional sales that came in April or May for that channel. So you do have to give it a little bit of time to mature because you do want to see exactly how that channel is going to perform. And if you look at it too quickly, if you only give it 30 days, let's say, or maybe a week, it's probably not a very good data set for you to analyze because it's not going to be very mature data. Okay, so one of the things that many marketing channels have is a marketplace. So for instance, Google AdWords, you get to tell them how much you want to spend per click, okay? And if you're saying that your target cost per sale is $1,000, you have to know what your target is. So internally, your finance team should tell you, hey, we can only spend $1,000 on marketing costs for every sale that you make. Well, if Google is, you've got it set right now at $5 per click, and you spent $2,000 to get a single sale, then you probably should divide your cost per click in half. And you say, hey, we're only willing to spend $2.50 per click instead of $5. And realistically, this should help you attain your target of $1,000 cost per sale. Now, what's the effect on your company's lead volume and on your clicks is that they're probably going to be cut in half or something to that effect as well. But that's worth it, because what's the point in buying clicks that are not going to allow you to make money? We're in this business to make a profit, and if you are paying too much for your marketing costs, it's going to hurt your ability to make a profit on that install. And so the appropriate thing to do in this scenario is to cut your cost in half. So as I mentioned, you usually have a portfolio. You're going to have several different marketing channels that you are generating leads from. And channel A, for example, let's say that you had a budget of $10,000. You spent $10,000 on it. You got 112 leads, followed it on down the funnel, and ultimately your cost per sale is only $833. Once again, you have that $1,000 target. So this is a good channel. This is giving you a discount on what you're able to spend per sale. And so with channel A, you're going to want to grow volumes. Now, channel B, you spent $5,000 in this time frame. And when everything came out in the end, it was costing you about $1,250 per sale. And so you got a couple options here. You could either try to optimize it. Maybe you need to reduce what you're paying per unit, or maybe you need to be handling that lead differently than you currently are. But ultimately, this is not your best channel, and you probably don't want to grow the volume on this channel until you figure out the appropriate path forward with it, because it's costing you too much and probably hurting your ability to make a profit. And you know, on the whole, let's say that you have 5 different channels here and they average out to $1,000. Well, that's great, but at the same time, you do want to continue to optimize it in order to bring down your cost per sale, because every dollar below 1,000 helps your profit margin. Okay, so there's a few different steps that you should be taking as a marketer and also for your sales team. And that's first is that you want to de-average your marketing and sales funnel. You really want to focus in on the channels that are working the best and stick with them. And really the only way to find out what channels are going to work best for you is to give them a shot. You know, dedicate a little bit of budget to it, and then find out what the results are. And those results are the truth. You know, salespeople that are trying to sell you clicks or trying to sell you ads and things like that, they can say anything they want over the phone about how good their product is, but ultimately the way that it performs for you is going to be the truth. And so what you need to do is first think on what marketing channels that you want to use and how you want them to be set up. How are they going to flow into your company? Next, you want to look at how it's performing, and you want to optimize it. If it's not performing to the correct metrics that you have in place, then you need to optimize that channel or reduce pricing or make some type of move. Otherwise, you're going to be less profitable than you could be. And then lastly, if there is pre-qualification, you need to be notified of that. So a raw lead, it could be a lead that has a 5-digit phone number. It could be somebody that lives in Zimbabwe. It might not be in your target market. And so part of the discussion that you should be having with any type of marketing channel that you're looking at is the pre-qualification that goes into those leads before they come to you. Now, once you get that lead in your door, few things. You need to be looking at the initial response time, and we're going to dive into this a bit deeper. But ultimately, if you're not following up on those leads in the correct time line, then you're probably not going to squeeze as much juice as you can out of them. You're not going to get as many sales as you want. Which leads into the next point, the lead follow-up and frequency and timing. You want to make sure to be following up on that lead, but at the same time, you don't want to waste resources. You could sit there and continuously call a phone number over and over and over, but you probably would get them on the phone at some point, but they probably won't want to talk to you after that, right? On the flip side of that, you could call a lead one time. I think you'd be surprised to learn that 50% of leads are only called one time by an organization, which is not the right strategy, but it is the other end of the extreme scale. Next, you've got your CRM, your customer resource management system. You want to make sure that it's working for you. It's allowing you to really track the metrics that you need to. It's allowing you to organize your follow-up, so on and so forth. And then also, you need to understand what your initial pitch is going to be. Are you touching on things that are important to the client? Are you getting information out of the client that is going to help your organization pitch them a correct product. So these are all things that you need to be thinking on. Next is the opportunity to sale. So once you get in that house and you're in front of that homeowner, is your product the right product? Is your pricing in line with where it should be? Is there any kind of promotion that you should be running? A lot of times you have competition in your area and you need to say, hey, what's the pricing on XYZ Solar? What kind of promotion is XYZ Solar running right now? Do we need to match it? You also need to look internally. What's the reputation of my company? How are we seen by clients? What's our Yelp reviews, so on and so forth. And are we offering any kind of warranties? And then last, you need to have some type of system for your proposals so that you're pricing your estimates appropriately, so that you're not having to go back with change orders. You want to make sure that your marketing is lining up with your product offering. If you're talking about a PPA, but you don't offer one, you're probably not going to win a lot of those sales because the homeowner is looking for a PPA, but you're approaching them with a different product. So these are all things to be thoughtful of as you're planning out your strategies. So one of the most important things, in fact, the most important thing on leads is the response time. And a lot of companies will receive a lead and not call it immediately. And this is the wrong strategy. On a study that included 3.5 million leads with over 400 companies nationally, and it spanned a variety of industries, so this is not limited just to solar. What research showed was that when a lead comes in your door, if you can call it within the first 60 seconds, then you have a 391% improvement over your current conversion rate. So let's say that you were sitting on that lead for 5 hours. Let's say you're sitting on that lead for 2 days. Those are probably bad strategies, and you're going to have a lot less conversion than if you were to call that lead immediately. And if there's one thing that you pull out of this entire webinar, this is the point that you need to get. As soon as a lead comes in your door, you need to call it immediately. So anything that you can do to set up your systems, to set up your staffing so that when leads are coming in the door, you can call on them immediately, I would recommend looking into doing so. When you're looking at CRMs, you should be looking for a CRM that's going to allow you to monitor your time to call. Okay, so how fast that first call went out, your speed to lead. A few different terms, all meaning the same thing. How fast were you able to call on that lead? And so once again, call on a lead within 60 seconds of it coming in your door. So another thing is, how many times should you call that lead? Should you call them 100 times? Should you call them 1 time? What's the right number? And so from the same study, what was found is that 93% of converted leads are contacted by the 6th call attempt. And so, you could squeeze a little more juice out of the 7th call attempt, the 8th call attempt, the 9th call attempt, but is it worth your manpower's hours, or should they maybe be focusing on the next lead or some other important value-adding exercise rather than calling on this lead that hasn't picked up after 6 calls? So 48% of leads, if called within the first minute, are converting to a opportunity for you. And on the 2nd call attempt, and we're going to get into timing on the 2nd, 3rd, 4th call attempts, if you follow the schedule, 70% of converted leads happen on that by the 2nd phone call, so on and so forth. So you want to be persistent, but you don't want to annoy them. You don't want to be calling them 10 times in 10 minutes, because you're probably going to have a homeowner that is either going to block your phone number, or they're going to pick up the phone and tell you to buzz off, or whatever transpires is probably not going to be good. And so you do not want to annoy somebody, obviously. So what is the call schedule you should follow? Next slide, please. And so we're going to get into the 2nd call right now. What's recommended is if you make that first call within the first minute, the 2nd call should happen about 30 to 60 minutes from that lead coming in your door. If you get into the third phone call, you should call them about an hour or 2 later. Now, those are all on day 1. So the first day you get that lead in, you should be calling it about 3 times, okay? And then you let it sit. You let it sit for 5 days. Sounds a little bit counterintuitive, right? But chances are this person, for whatever reason, is not going to pick up their phone on day 2, 3, 4. The next best chance is going to be on day 5, according to a study of 3.5 million leads, okay? And then you let it sit even longer till day 14. You make your 5th call on day 14. And then your 6th call is going to be on day 15. And so what I've always recommended is that if you call in the morning on day 14, call in the afternoon on day 15, or vice versa, just to try and attack that person's daily schedule a little bit differently. Maybe they work in the morning but not in the afternoon, or vice versa. So, but it seems a little bit counterintuitive, but hey, the data doesn't lie. In fact, I implemented this exact same call strategy at a solar installation company I worked for about 8 years ago at this point. And we saw our lead contact rates go from about 10 to 15% month over month to about 50 to 75%. And it was sustained for over a 12-month period. And even after I left the company, they stuck with it. And to my understanding, their results were similar. So it's worth a try. I would recommend anybody that's listening to this webinar to try out the call schedule here. I can definitely provide you with a further detail on this study if you desire. But I've tried it. I've seen success from it. And it's based on a huge sample of 3.5 million leads across many different industries and many different companies. So basically what it boils down to, though, is that you want to be persistent but not annoy. So you want to give 3 phone calls in that first day, and then you want to let them sit for a bit, or else they're going to get fatigued from your phone number coming on their caller ID, and they're probably not going to answer the phone anyways. So. Now, the second thing is the email strategy. When should you send emails? Now, leads that are sent emails convert much better than leads that never are sent to email. So if you're only making those 6 phone calls but never sending an email, you're probably not going to get as high of a conversion rate as if you were to send 5 emails as well. So the first one, you want to send it within about 20 minutes of that lead coming in your door. So you make that first phone call to them. If you don't get them on the phone, drop them an email after about 20 minutes and then give them another call in like 10 minutes after that, okay? Second email, you're going to do that on day 4, so it aligns with when you're making that second phone call, okay? And then you're going to hit them on day 8, day 15, and then day 22. And just like with the calls, what was found is that these would maximize your conversion rates. And email sent on day 1, 20 minutes after that lead comes in the door, will improve your conversion rate on average 49% above what your current conversion rates are. So this graphic just lays out everything all in one. So you've got your days, you've got your call schedule, you've got your email schedule, and at the bottom you've got your minutes. So in the first day it's broken out into the first couple hours there. But you really do attack a lead very hard at first. It actually builds rapport. I know that some sales folks that I've worked with in the past think that maybe it makes you look desperate, maybe you don't have enough business, but we can think anything we want, but the data doesn't lie. And from real homeowners' responses, what we found is that attacking that lead pretty heavily in the first day and then letting it sit for a few days is a better strategy rather than just making 1 phone call per day or something else. And so what we found is that this can improve your conversion rates over 100%. From my example, it improved our conversion rates at the solar installer I worked at by over 400%, which is great. Okay, and so good lead management, you have to stay on top of this. You have to understand a couple different metrics. First is speed. You need to get on that phone call as fast as possible. I know I'm beating this to death with you guys, but ultimately getting that first phone call within the first 60 seconds is imperative. And on average, businesses take 48 hours to reply to an online lead, which is, it sounds ridiculous after you've heard this study, right? And so the thing is, a lot of your competitors, if you have competitors in your area, they're probably sitting on leads. If you're on the phone with them, you're already out at their house by the time they get a phone call from XYZ Solar down the street. And so, the early bird gets the worm, and that's the case here. So get on that phone call as fast as possible. Try to set up that site visit with them. Get out there and pitch your product and hopefully make a sale before anybody else even talks to them. The second thing is discipline. So you need to be making the 6 phone calls at least, okay? So a lot of companies, as I mentioned, 50% of leads only get 1 call, okay? So persistence pays off. Now, you don't want to annoy, all right? So you want to make sure to spread out those calls over a couple weeks there. But you do need to be persistent, and you do have to have the discipline, and that's something that the proper CRM system will allow you to do. It will track the number of phone calls that have gone out to that lead, when they happened, so on and so forth. So the average business only makes 2 phone calls or less, which is pretty shocking. And lastly, you've got your productivity. So implementing an effective sales solution can double your productivity. So one of the biggest things is that hurts sales organizations is that sales reps spend 75% of their day determining what their next step is going to be, who the next client they're going to call on. And so if you can, with your CRM, automate some of those things. If you have a sales rep who ran a site visit with a prospect on Tuesday, then have an automatic follow-up for them on Thursday to thank them for the meeting and ask them if they have any follow-up questions or whatever the process is for your sales team. But make sure that that you have something laid out so the sales reps have a game plan in front of them. You don't want them sitting around twiddling their thumbs trying to figure out what to do next. So once again, beating that dead horse, call your leads immediately. It really doesn't matter which channel it comes in from. It could be a referral, it could be a web lead, it could be a newspaper, somebody called in from a newspaper ad. It doesn't really matter, but you need to be trying to get that person on the phone as fast as possible, okay? And if you don't reach them, make sure you're calling them back. You know, you should be at least calling them 6 times, okay, over the first 22 days or so. And then you also need to be tracking how your channels are performing. If a channel is ultimately, dollars make sense, okay? It doesn't really matter if a lead has a high lead to opportunity rate if you're not getting any sales out of them, right? And so you ultimately need to be tracking it holistically, and you need to be hitting cost metrics because it's great to have market share, but it's even better to be profitable. There's been a lot of really large solar companies out there that have tried to buy up market share over the years, and they're no longer in business. And so one of the most important things you must keep your eye on is the profitability of your business. And so manage your marketing channels to attain profitability and track them. And after you have enough data in, after your data has matured a couple months, then you should really be looking at your cost per sale to determine which channels you need to turn up and which channels you need to turn down. And one last thing, you need to focus on the good leads and move on from the bad leads. So in general, only about 25% of leads typically turn into a site visit on average, okay? And what that means is that 75% of the leads that come in your door are not going to move forward. It could be for a variety of reasons. It could be because it's not a very attractive homeowner. Maybe they have bad credit. Maybe their site is not very suitable for solar. On the flip side, maybe it's somebody who's just not interested in you guys. Maybe they got burned out because they got 100 phone calls yesterday from solar companies trying to solicit them. Whatever the reason, about 75% of the leads you should expect are not going to move forward with a site visit with you. And so focus on the ones that are moving forward, invest your time and effort into those leads, and don't dwell on the leads that aren't moving forward and cost you money, because you should be saying, hey, if I'm paying $25 per lead, if 25% of the leads are turning into an actual site visit, then my cost per site visit, my cost per opportunity is $100. And that's really the metric that you should be looking at, because if you focus in on every individual lead and try to dissect why an individual lead did not move forward, you're probably wasting your time. You should probably be spending that time on looking at the leads that are moving forward and trying to get them to sale. Okay, and then one last thing, just wanted to discuss a little bit further about my company, Clean Energy Experts. We go by CEE. We do run a customer acquisition platform where we do mass sourcing. We have an entire team dedicated to running multiple lead channels, and once those channels are generating leads, they go through our QC process, and ultimately those leads, you can receive them in your door through our bidding marketplace. And then last, you would run those leads, determine how well they're working for you, and if they are coming in at a profitable level for you, then you can turn us up. If they're not coming in at a profitable level, you can change how much you're willing to pay for that lead. You get to set the pricing in our marketplace. Every other company does the exact same thing, and whoever's willing to pay the most for that lead at the time that it gets qualified means that it's going to be sent to that company. So all of these leads are going to be phone verified, meaning that we've verified the homeowner is indeed the homeowner, that they are interested in solar, and that we have all the correct contact information for them. And that's done via phone call with every single lead before it comes to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Mark. So AEE Solar has partnered with EEE. We have sent an email out a couple of weeks ago to provide solar leads with our dealers free of charge. So we want you to grow that sales funnel with vetted homeowner leads delivered from the sources that you specified. So to qualify for this opportunity, dealers must purchase a minimum of $10,000 in products through AEE Solar within the past year. After you've been receiving leads, additional requirements must be met to continue receiving the leads. And there are some states that don't qualify for the free leads, but hey, having that opportunity for you guys as an AEE customer is something that I believe is a value add, and AEE believes it's a value add as well. So go ahead and check those out. Reach out to your territory sales manager, talk to them, see where you can go about this. And if there aren't any free leads in your territory, contact your territory sales manager and talk to them about, kind of how you can go moving forward. You can also reach out to Mark, and I'll go ahead and let him take this back and give some information on how to get a hold of him.
Thanks, Caitlin. And yes, I am hoping that many of you are able to take advantage of the promotional offer that AE is providing. We've been sending leads to qualified AE partners for years now, and a lot of them have found success from the leads. If you would like to explore purchasing leads directly from Clean Energy Experts, I'd be more than happy to work with you or have one of our account managers that reports to me work with you as well. You can call in on our main phone line, which is shown here, 888-630-6690. Or if you have a question for me directly, you can email it to mark@cleanenergyexperts.com. And lastly, if you'd like to explore our company just a little bit further, you can visit our website, cleanenergyexperts.com. And our account managers or myself can walk you through the entire system. It only takes a couple minutes to understand really when you have it in front of you. And the nice thing is there's no kind of contract, there's no minimum purchase, and you can come and go at your own pleasure.